Hello, friends, and welcome to our little meditation on improving relations with the animal kingdom. Normally, Tuya would be doing this, and of course, she would do a better job than I do, but I will offer at least a little, and we can think about that kingdom with whom we share a physical body, and in which the planet Mars is so important as it is for human beings. And we can think about their transition into the human kingdom. I'm remembering, I took a course in biology. It was basically a course in high school, but it was a demanding course. And we learned all the divisions of the animal kingdom, all the way from the little one-celled animals, such as, let's say, the amoeba, or the paramecium, or the various types of worms, without any kind of backbone, and on all the way up to including the human being. And there are still so many people that consider that the human being is simply an advanced animal. Excuse me. But that is not how occultism sees it. And we are students of the Tibetan, and we have to at least try to take to ourselves his point of view and to experiment with it, even though it is not the conventional point of view. So that's what we're going to try to do. And as I say, my offering here will be, well, short, and will perhaps highlight certain aspects that we need to think and rethink about. You notice here that we have two planets. One is the moon and one is Mars. And these are two planets which are very much connected with the animal kingdom. They are, well, sometimes they are considered to be profane planets. That means they are outside the gate of the temple. They're not really allowed in. They have much to do with the lunar lords, we might say, and at this time of Advent and Sagittarius, we have a very important Mars kind of effect. If I think about it, there's a great deal to do with the animal kingdom when we think about Sagittarius. After all, it does rule the centaurs. Mars does in Sagittarius, and these are creatures who are half animal and half man. They are not yet the detached archer. They are certainly not yet the bow and arrow considered as the symbol of Sagittarius. And then when it comes to the moon, we also have a very strong connection with the lunar lords. Now, if you check out a treatise on cosmic fire, page 844, you'll see the way the different types of beings move upward. And certain of the lives that were cut short in their development on the moon chain, which is still part of the Earth scheme, of course, were brought to this particular planet and will begin to serve first within the animal body. That is an interesting idea, I think. I don't want to get too much into the details of it because that is such a magnificent tabulation, page 844, right, that we could spend days looking at the progression of the different forms of life as they upward move. But these two planets have a lot to do with the liabilities of humanity, the liabilities of the animal kingdom, and their shared bodily form to a certain extent. Now, if we go way back, we'll find immense animal man with described as possessing huge tabernacles of clay. Well, clay is another name for the physical body. And into some of these great forms, the solar angels took their anchor. Not in all. And as DK says, when the solar angels took over and became, in a way, the god kings of an earlier time, they gave perfect laws which came from Venus, which is not animal-like at all. It's in a big contrast to the Martian nature of animality and even the Martian nature of the human form. But the animal man of the period, or let's just say the slowly advancing human being, disobeyed those laws. And we have been suffering ever since through various forms of disobedience on the part of those who in ancient Lemurian times could have followed the correct path. It's a shame, but it's the way it worked out, and this was aided and abetted by the forces of obstruction who wanted to stop the initiatory ascent of the human being. Well, every kingdom moves into the next kingdom, and we have quite an obligation um, to many types of animals. The purely domestic animals, the animals who have, excuse me, the animals who have domestic potentialities. Let's just say, okay, the cow may be considered one, whereas the horse, the dog, the cat, the elephant are definitely, did I say the dog, of course? They are definitely domestic animals, but there are those that are in the transition phase, drawing closer to the human race for instruction. Okay, you're not going to find, the hippopotamus or the rhinoceros there. They are chordates. They have a backbone, but they don't have the development yet to be taken under the wings of the human race, just the way we are taken under the wings of the angels. We are much supervised, even if we don't realize it. And, we find, I think this is a horse, and we find the incipient responses, which are more human responses than animal. I think this is trying to show something not just about an eye that seems to be running, but about emotion and tears. There are some amazing, if you really begin to look at animals' relationships to each other, and also to humanity, you see some amazing things, some of them very heartwarming. This is trying to withstand the elements, and it looks like, is it a penguin or a bird of some kind? See, that's the whole thing. The animal kingdom is much exposed to the wildness and uncontrollability of the elements, which, with our planet out of balance at the moment, offers a condition in which the elements are more out of control than usual. Now, through human intelligence, we've been able to control the elements to a certain degree. We have maybe found a way to deal with forest fires, but not always. We have learned to protect ourselves from wild winds, but certainly not always. Look at what just happened in Kentucky. Something of a very terrible and almost unbelievable nature that may be related to climate change. They're still debating that, but for a tornado, I think, to stay on the ground for some 128 miles, this is unheard of. And maybe 100 people have died in that rampant expression of the element of air. And we've learn perhaps how to um, create levees and other methods which prevent being overrun by water, but not entirely. There are many places that are going to be suffering because they lie low, and the flooding is beginning because of global warming and because humanity is not taking the proper steps, although to a certain extent the initiatory process through which the earth is now passing would lead to some of these flooding conditions. And then, of course, the earthquakes. Again, predicted, but we human beings can make matters worse, and make matters worse for the kingdoms which are dependent upon us as the macrocosm, which involves the animal, vegetable, and mineral kingdoms particularly, just as we are dependent upon higher kingdoms to help lift us. So, there are some amazing pictures, and some very sad in our mistreatment of the animals. The so-called pigs are very social animals, and there is this thing called the last pig syndrome, the pig left behind, who goes through all kinds of torture because it's such a social animal. Of course, the whole idea of eating the animals is coming to an end. The karma involved there is coming to an end. We don't necessarily know what animal forms were the sheep. They sacrificed the lambs and sheep. We don't know really what animal forms were the cows, who are not just used for dairy purposes, but which are eaten. And this goes back, says the Tibetan, to early man's suffering due to the predations of the animal kingdom in those early days. But the affection between the human and the animal kingdom is growing. This is, of course, one of the chief domestic animals, and can be given tasks and put to work, which is very important. And there are horse lovers and dog lovers and cat lovers and elephant lovers among human beings. And maybe, cow lovers too, and sheep lovers, but those animals are more approaching the domestic stages and are not so much exactly there, ready for that closer interaction. So we need to, as we think about this, as we meditate about this, we need to let the heart be open and the love wisdom pour through. because this sensitivity of love wisdom can overcome the kind of brutal Martian relationship which has existed between the human and the animal kingdoms. It's been a very Martian affair up to this point. Now, you know, there are lower types of animals and they're just not there yet. Even if an animal is a chordate and has a backbone, you don't expect all of those animals to be approaching humanity in any kind of cooperative manner. The crocodile and the alligator, no, they cannot and will not. The rhinoceros, the hippo, no. A domesticated hippopotamus is not often found. There's an entirely different relationship. However, domestication among the orcas and the so-called killer whales and human beings can be very close. Not so the shark, and there the skeleton is not quite chordate, it's more cartilaginous. Nor will insects and various types of worms, advanced and not so advanced, or echinoderms, the starfish and seahorses and all of those lower types, they are not with man. The orca is. That's an entirely different being. So the true status of animals may be taught in biology, but a better idea about their lines comes, I think, from theosophy, and especially a book which is I like very much, the First Principles of Theosophy by Jinara Jadasa, and it kind of shows the various types of animals. The fish, too, is a chordate, unlike the shark. But again, you don't expect domestication in relation to the fish. You don't expect them to be close enough to humanity to come under the culturing care of the human being. We seek the light, to throw light upon our relationships with our younger brothers, so to speak, in the animal kingdom. Now, we've been through this, not necessarily the second, the first, giving us opportunity to pass through using certain life forms which are much different from the human form or from the great ape-like figures that we began to use, well, maybe on the moon chain. It's difficult to know what those forms were. Leadbeater, C.W. Leadbeater, thinks he knows, and he offers some suggestions. But on earlier globes, we, the monad, passing through the Great Pilgrimage, we used other types of vehicles. And we need the light upon those vehicles. We need basically a heart connection with the animal kingdom, and of course it's much more likely to be demonstrated with the animals that are closest to us. I mean, maybe man's best friend, well, among certain 2, 4, 6 types, that's probably true if you're not in a society that considers the dog edible. Although recently China is deeming the dog and not an object for food. But other places, I guess in some of the Chinese markets and the far eastern markets, you can find almost anything that people will eat, and that can lead. As a matter of fact, that's one of the big issues right now about the COVID-19. Where really did it come from? And did it appear because of man's eating habits and what is being sold in those markets? This is the Prince of Peace, an image, and there is a series of American primitive art called the Peaceable Kingdom, and it really does, as the Bible tells us, give us an image of the lion lying down with the lamb. In other words, the hostility has been abrogated. It has ceased, and they are very interesting paintings. But all of this is under the aegis of the Prince of Peace, who is interested in peace not only of the kingdoms and of the relationship of the members of the lesser kingdoms with each other. It has been said that the proper diet, the proper food for man, is provided by the plant kingdom. Well, it's a 4 and it's a 2. And in this question of numerical resonance can be found many of the habits and the cultural tendencies of groups that come under those numbers. But let us affirm in alignment our relationship to the Prince of Peace. We have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya. Be with us. And we could add, may the mind that is in Christ be, we hardly know what that means, but more and more we will. Here's a little image. It's interesting that that whole Amazon region, green, does look like an organ within the other areas are deserts. Master Moria is quite severe when thinking about deserts. He says, search for what offenses have been committed to produce deserts. We see that Africa is much afflicted there, and the areas of green, however, are those that have to be cultivated. In the case of the Amazon, it's sort of the replica of the lungs of the planet, and produces, when not molested and when not burned and cut down for the sake of meat eating, it produces so much oxygen that the entire sphere needs. It's also interdependent, and if we violate one of the kingdoms, we're liable to find the others in trouble as well. Now, this is a interesting image with the one of the popular images of the Manu at the apex, and the Mahachohan at the here on the lower left. And I assume, though I assume that this is not the Christ. It looks more like the Master Jupiter. It looks like kind of a 1 and 3 alignment, 1, 3, 7, hardline rays. He is the regent of India, if this is meant to be the Master Jupiter. Tuya would know. Here is the regent of Europe and the United States, the Mahachohan. And an initiate of the 6th degree. And if we're dealing with the Master Jupiter, he's said to be the oldest of the masters, I suppose, in point of origin. And the Manu also is an initiate of the 6th degree. Well, here we have some of our younger brothers and sisters, of course, and the amazing kind of relationships that can develop between them, such as that friendship between the lion, tiger, and bear. Quite astonishing. But anyway, we look for peace among the kingdoms. He for whom the whole world waits has said that whatsoever shall be asked in his name, and with faith in the response, will see it accomplished. That's an amazing statement. But of course, it has to be in the name of the Christ, and it cannot be a selfish kind of request. And so often in the Bible, New Testament, we are told, you may go now, and your faith has made you whole. Your faith has healed you. So look at these ancient rhinoceros form, the hyena, the pig, the tiger, the giraffe, the central bear, the duck, that looks like, the zebra, not quite domesticated the way the horse is, the polar bear. Well, I wouldn't get too close. Maybe there are other bears that are less aggressive and do not look upon humanity as a food object. The elephant, yes. And among the birds, the parrot seems to be on its way, and the butterfly is hovering above all. Here are some of the protective Davic beings. Every form of life, every kingdom has its protectors. And the sacred places where the different life forms are found, they are protected. Some of you have probably been to the Self-Realization Fellowship. I think there's more than one. But they particularly, well, yeah, I'm thinking about the Yogananda Gardens. Now there's one in Encinitas, but I think also in California, and all the lower kingdoms are beautifully manifested. The carp fish are found there. The many types of flowers, second kingdom. The kind of rock that is used to provide the basis for everything. The mineral kingdom. It's a beautiful place. I'm just familiar with the one in Encinitas. It's a beautiful place to spend some contemplative time. Now, not far from that garden and slightly forward are the indications of a temple that was there, unwisely built, and which basically slid away and was destroyed. Well, we can see the humanity, the growing humanity in some of these animal pictures, and they are, some of them, quite sad. Especially something better could be done for these animals. But these days, there's so much selfishness, and humanity looks to the animals as forms to be exploited, and that, of course, cannot persist during the Aquarian age. So let's think in the silence a little bit. What would we recommend to improve the relationship of man and the animals? Maybe we don't all have to be, is her name Jane Goodall? Even her name says something. Who went off and virtually lived with the mountain gorillas for many years as a friend and protector. I don't think I'll get an answer to that right now, but we can search that. What is our relationship to the animal kingdom? When I think of animals that I've mistreated, I feel a terrible guilt. From earlier days when I was a young person, and probably under the influence of those two hidden planets which incline young people to do those sorts of things. But we grow out of things, and we have the opportunity to make things right. Now, some people, they say, well, they're just not animal people. Allergies also take their toll. And some people just want to deal with, let's say, humans and plants, or maybe simply the different kinds of minerals and crystals and precious stones. Tuya and I have a real kennel going on here. 4 little chihuahuas and 2 very lovely looking cats, and they take time. But it's interesting to see how they interact, how they grow. And are we lifting them toward their next expansion of consciousness? In many ways, we are the pets of the solar angels. And what is petting? When streams of uplifting energy come to us, as described in a treatise on white magic at the end of chapter 1, well, that's being petted by the solar angel or the angel of the presence, and we have our own petting relationship. I've been to a deer park in, where was it? Perhaps Michigan. Normally the deer would not be so tame, but they've come into close contact with human beings who support them. And they have these petting zoos, We're transferring energy, really. We're not dealing with crocodiles and alligators and dangerous animals. We're not, as far as I know, petting hippopotamuses, a very dangerous animal to other animals and to man. But there are those to whom we can transfer the energy and improve their relations to each other and our relations to them. The angels, however we describe them, this is rather old-fashioned way of doing so, but they supervise so much of the positive relation with the animals and the other kingdoms to help render our planet a sacred planet can't have, as they say, dog eat dog. It's, found in the north and very brutal. We need something different. The little turtles, sea turtles, well, they only make it so far, because somehow the sharks know where to come when the turtles are hatching and trying to make it into the water and survive. So many do not survive. But then we have to remember this is essentially a Ray 1 planet. So here are some images of cross-species friendship. Probably that lion was raised by that man and remembers. The panda is not a dangerous animal, but here is affection. This is the future, and you can see the relationship building, nose to nose. Here's a lamb being held by a man, and it's hard to think that this man would want to make lamb chops out of this lamb that he's holding that way. It's an older picture of a boy with a lamb. See, the love energy is coming through and beginning to negate the Martian energy which has prevailed for so long. And this looks like the family cow, which, I think is in many respects very close to a domestic animal. And certainly there is this bond between the little girl and the cow. Another one. The cow is very close, I think, to maybe, a bit more intelligence, such as the elephant possesses, or the dog, or the cat, and the cow can be right there. Is this a wolf? It looks like it, but it could be a dog. Again, the love-wisdom energy is the key. Moments of affection. look at the leg of this horse. This little pig, again, it would be hard to make bacon out of such a little fellow. And that nose is a bit like Mama. Maybe a little more conventional here, but conveying the idea. And rabbits, they're a rodent, and they're normally not considered among the domestic animals, but some can come closer. Here's a little girl with a cat. It reminds me of the very first image of the man with the lion. And now we have elephant affection. Not yet a big elephant, but, matter of fact, more a baby. But we see the connection. I wonder how well the little girl will do at moving our friend, the elephant. It's a heroic attempt, I guess. And she seems quite confident. It looks like a goat. So the bond oftentimes between children and animals that are not quite among the normal domesticated ones brings out the loving relationship. A symbol, in a way, the dove of peace. Although doves among themselves can be rather aggressive, but still a beautiful symbol. So friends, that's our little meditation with some very inspiring images that show there is a way. I mean, we certainly don't want to be fighting with the angels, do we? And the time will come, and I think is upon us, when in so many cases the members of the animal kingdom will not be fighting with the human. There are still those, of course, who are the predators. That's their nature. We're not going to tame the crocodile overnight, although I did read of a crocodile that was tamed in that way. It appears he had experienced some kind of wound which removed his aggressive tendencies. I think as time goes on, there will be many stories, increasingly about man's relationship to the animal kingdom in a touching way, I think. So thank you for being with us. And a great deal will be accomplished when the ongoing hostility between the two kingdoms is finally reduced, and when the love-wisdom energy enters, overcoming this Martian attack and payback kind of dynamic. So thank you for your presence, and we wish you, with all these programs, a good absorption and much understanding of how the different sections of the teaching relate to each other. I'll sign off now, and we will proceed.